Hey guys, it's Guy Javerone here, and wanted to dive a little bit deeper into AI voice bots for storage. So if you're familiar with AI voice from some of my previous videos, there's a few different providers that I like to use. One of them is Vappy, the other one is Retail. I've done one with Synflow, they're Bland. All of the voice providers have subtle differences, and there's just a few of them that are easier to work with on a small. If you've got one, two, maybe up to 5 facilities, you can set these up yourself. Some of them, if you've got more of an enterprise, you will need a larger solution. But this video is for more people who are trying to experiment with it. Now, you've got a couple things that you have to put together, right? So you're going to put the voice agent on the front end. And for those who don't know what I'm talking about, the voice agent on the front end is pretty much replacing your landing page, your facility management software landing page where somebody's renting units, right? So what we're going to do in this video is I'm going to kind of show you how you can have a voice agent as a rollover agent where the phone call comes in and you yourself, if you're a one-man show or a one-woman show, miss the call, the agent will take the information and then pass that information onto either a Google Sheet or an Airtable. And then from there, if you have the right coding or you have an API, you can pass it into your self-storage management software as a lead. So you can take advantage of it. And there's a couple other things you could do. If you've got somebody answering the phones for you, if you've got somebody dedicated to following up, you can send that over to them so that they can follow up and finish the deal. There's a couple of things we're going to need here. You're going to need the voice agent. In this course, I'm going to use Retail. You're going to need the prompt. You're going to need some functions. And then you're going to need a no-code solution that I use. One of them, I use many. I use Make.com. I use N8N, Crew AI. They all have their specific use cases. And I like to have like a Swiss Army knife of AI versus one particular setup, because just in case one goes down, you got the other one to replace it. So the first thing we're going to look at is Retail. And here's the setup we've got in Retail. If you want to know how to set these up in Retail, you can watch my previous video. This one, we're going to assume that you've watched the previous video, and we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the prompt. So this is just a general prompt for someone to use to, I'm planning on this. This is a customer request. So we're actually giving this to a customer as a rollover rate. So if they don't answer the phone, the AI will answer the phone and take the information and pass the information into Make. Make is going to pass it on to them using CRM. We actually have an API with Storage, so we're going to pass it into Storage as a lead. But if you use some of these no-code solutions, you can avoid using developers if you just get to know it a little bit. So the first thing, we got the prompt on the side here is first you got to define the role. This one says you're a voice assistant, and apologize for my voice. I'm just getting over, whatever's going around now, but I'm a little nasally, so apologize about that. But wanted to get this out because I know, it could be useful. So your voice assistant with your Self Storage just gives the data for the particular, this is just test data, right? So I just, beating up the AI here. First, we're going to give it a task. The first is to answer questions about the business and renting units. If they wish to rent a unit, your goal is to gather the necessary information from the callers in a friendly and efficient manner like follows. Get the following information. I always like to do this before mentioning pricing. You've been in the industry at all, you have people who call up and they say, I just want a price on a 10 by 10. My experience, I've been doing this for about 20 years. Most people have no idea what a 10 by 10 will hold. If they've never rented storage before, we've had people try to put a 5-bedroom house in a 10 by 10. And if you know that, that's not going to work in case, unless it's like a Lego house or something. But I'd like to have the AI answer like my managers. My managers have been trained to be the authority in storing at our facilities. They know what'll fit in there. They know what won't fit in there. And then they kind of know how to massage the tenant to get them into the right unit so we don't have problems later. So what we're going to do here is we're going to talk about first, you got to verify the phone number, right? Some of these, depending on what software you're using, you can match the incoming phone number and pass that to your follow-up sequence. I'm just assuming that this particular client that we're building it for, it doesn't have call tracking. We'd like to upsell them on call tracking, but if you don't have call tracking, just have the AI ask the client for just to make sure their phone number. And we also do this because if the client calls in from one number, they might be calling from a friend's house or the moving company, and it may not be their phone. So we want the right phone number to call them back. Then it's to find out their first name in a friendly way. Once collected, repeat it back. You have to do this with the AI because you want to make sure it's spelled correctly. And the only way to do that is to ask it, spell it, and then confirm it with the client. Find out the last name, repeat it back in the same way. Find out what they'd like to store in a friendly way, and find out if they've ever stored and then how long. So these are the questions that I like to do to warm up my clients. And I do this even if we weren't doing AI. Before I give you the price, I want to know what you're storing. That helps me as the owner know that even whether I want you to store, if you tell me you're going to store like 500-gallon, propane tanks, I might not want, and then have you ever stored before? That allows me to create a rapport and try to dissuade you from any bad experiences you might have with your previous storage facility. And then how long are you going to store? That gives me and my managers an idea of what discounts. If you're only going to store a month, probably going to get a discount. If you tell me you're going to store 6 months to a year, and then we kind of get some friction at the end trying to close the deal, then I might be able to slip in some specials for you to try and close that deal. And that's just salesmanship. And then you go to task 2. Task 2, you're looking at based on what they're storing. You use the knowledge base to suggest a unit and give the caller the pricing from the knowledge base. So the knowledge base for retail is in here. We've got a pricing guide information we put into a PDF for this particular one, and we load it up here. I've got to load the price guide, and I'll probably do that before we test it. But we'll put the pricing in there. Now, there's 2 ways to do pricing. One's a little bit more complicated than the other. If your pricing is pretty static, then I would put the pricing in a PDF per unit with your promotions and load it up to the knowledge base, and that should be good. Or you can put it right in the prompt. If your pricing is variable, if you're adjusting your prices regularly, then you would need a function, a unit availability function. And this is going to depend on your facility management software. You can do it the manual way, and then every time your prices fluctuate, just edit your prompt or edit your knowledge base, or you can design a function that will call your facility management software if you have some kind of API connection, or if you set something up, a sheet that updates, a database that updates, and the AI you can tell the AI when they want the pricing to call that unit availability function and pull out the pricing and availability for the specific unit that they're asking for. That's a whole nother video, and it's very dependent on what software you're using right now. We've got a connection with Storable. So if you've got SiteLink or StoreEdge, we can hook you up there. We're designing one for Self-Storage Manager. And there's a couple other ones that we got on the way, but it just takes time to get them so that we can get those connections so that you can actually hook your AI voice to your facility management software, get the pricing, and then dump it in. And later this quarter, we'll be running live through the AI voice, so look out for that. And then after you get the size, you present it to the customers or suggest it with the applicable promotions. And then let's see here, once they confirm. And then get them to give you your email. So in this particular case, what we're doing is we're getting the email so that we can send all of this information, the name, phone number, email, and what size they wanted over to the manager, to the owner, so that they can immediately follow up. So the way the sequence is going to work is the call comes in, either the owner missed it or it's after hours. The AI takes the call, gathers the information, gives the client what they want as far as pricing, and then takes that information and passes it via text and email to this particular owner, and it's going to dump it into StoreEdge as a lead. And then the owner's going to take it from there. We're not going to do anything more with the voice bot. So that's why we want to make sure we get the email. Now, what we've done is we're not passing any of the information until we've got all of the information, because you don't want the AI to start taking steps and triggering functions randomly. You want to make sure that you told it after you gather all these data points, then you're going to send the information off. So what it says is, get them to give you your email, send it over a quote for the manager to contact it directly to complete the rental, confirm the spelling, and then once you confirm first name, last name, phone, email, and unit size, run the unit request function to send them to manager. And I'm going to show you how we do that using Make. You can use Make, you need to use N8N. If you know any coding, you can code it directly if you have an established API with any of these facility management softwares. And then you go down to context. You got the name of the storage facility, the owner, and kind of what they do. And then let's see here. You want to make sure that you specify with storage the ones that you don't have, right? So this one doesn't offer climate control or heated, or let's see, for use by the public for a fee after the customer provides required details. And I restate that you run the unit availability function, ask the customer hold while you're getting the pricing. We'll see that in this video. I don't have it hooked up yet because this particular customer isn't using, well, actually they are, I just haven't hooked it up yet. So I just wanted to get the video out to make sure that everybody can see the possibilities. But the unit availability function is not going to work. You'll see it, but you'll see how the voice handles it. And then on your notes, you want to do some, so if you've dealt with AI at all or AI voice, it's kind of like, it's a lot like humans. They're going to listen to the front end and the bottom. So that's why you can't really have really long prompts. When you get to a point where you're prompting very long, then you need to break it up. And Vappy has a really cool tool to do this where they break it up into sections where sections of the conversation have their own prompts. And this makes it more human-like, because when you get your prompts too long and you get over your skis a little bit, then you get what they call hallucinations. Your AI voice is just going to make stuff up. So what I like to put on at the bottom is stuff that I want to make sure gets done. So be sure to be kind and witty. Instead of saying 5x5, like if you don't have this, then your voice is going to say 5x5 versus 5x5, and then use the correct language to talk about pricing. Keep all your responses short. Use, well, awesome, all that good stuff. And then this is a voice conversation, so keep your responses short, like a real conversation. So after this original prompt, we're going to test this. We usually use a month's worth of tests, a month to 6 weeks of testing. And what that testing involves is we'll put the agent live, and then we'll transcribe all the conversations, and then we'll do semantic analysis of the conversations, making sure we're getting good responses. When we see a negative response, we'll edit the prompt to take care of that response. And it's just like training a new employee. You want to train the employee to handle your customers just like you would. And you're still going to have to do that with the agents. Now, with storage, once we've got one now, then we pretty much know what they're going to do. But you'll be surprised, different markets in different areas in different parts of the country, even different parts of the world, you're going to get different questions. You're going to get different issues. So every voice agent that gets deployed is going to be needs to be trained. That's, I like some of these companies are releasing voice agents that are one size fits all. And that may be okay in some areas, but if you really want to get it to sell storage for you, you really got to customize it to your area and get it used to talking to the people that you're used to talking to. And you know your market better than your AI does. So let's see, we got everything in here. We talked about the unit request. So the unit request is going to be, this is make.com. And what we do for the unit request is we set up a webhook, and we take that webhook and we paste it in to the function right here. Now, if you look at this function, you got to tell it you're going to define it with unit request. It's going to trigger when all the information has been collected. This is telling the AI when you want it to trigger. And then you're going to paste this hook right here into the URL. And what that's going to do is when it has all the information, it's going to send all that information to this URL with these parameters. Now you have to set these parameters, and these are based on these examples. So basically when you set it up, it'll be blank, and then you hit like example 3, and then you just kind of replace what's in there. So let me do this. I'll show you. I'll copy this and paste it just real quick. All right, so we'll get rid of it. So this is what it'll look like when you're first setting it up, and then you just go example 3, and it'll populate it, and then you just go through and you change it. And so what we did, you can see this is object properties. Now, if I paste back in what I have, you'll see that properties object is last name. The type is going to be string. And this is telling the AI what this last name property should be. And we need to do this because it's going to pass it through that webhook to whatever other software you're going to. So if you get a CRM that takes JSON code or a webhook, you can put this in there, and it will trigger your CRM to either, text the client, email the client, alert your owner, alert your manager, all that good stuff. This is how you start connecting your voices into other pieces of software. Now, there are some softwares out there, even Ring Central has an AI voice now. I like best in class versus, versus having like an all-in-one solution. I know some people would just like one thing to work all the time, but I just think there's so many different AIs coming out right now that are really good. And there's not really more coming out. There's just a few that are still in the game that are getting really better. And I think retail, VAPI, the other ones that I mentioned on the channel, they're all doing really well, and they're all catching up to each other. But what I don't want to use is some CRM that just pasted in an AI voice just to say they had an AI voice. I like to use a really good AI voice software with code that I can connect to other pieces of software to make it run, to make it work, to make it run. And then what I'll have is my developers will get coded. That's what I like to do. Test it with no code and then code it hard code it so that we can pass it. So got off on a tangent there. Sorry about that. But what you're going to do is you're going to change this code up for the properties that you need. So last name, reason for unit, first name, phone, unit size, email, and then the required, you got to make sure you have all this in as first name, last name, phone, and unit size. This is what is needed before it'll pass this. So then you just hit format JSON, update, and you're good to go. So now I like retail because they got this free testing tool. Some of the other ones you're going to have to test, but it's going to eat up credits. So even if I'm building something that's not for retail, I'll build it in retail and then transfer it over, because they all use VAPI and retail use webhooks, and the other ones all have some of their unique code, but it's generally the same once you get all the information in there. So now we're just going to test this out, and we're going to get this to run. So I've unhooked this from the rest of the prompt, and I just want to show you guys how the information gets passed through and then what you could do with it. So we're going to run this. So this is listening right now. All right. And then what I've got set up here is it passes into a database, and then we use that database to update our owner with an API request here. And you could do that inside of Make. Then, like I said, after we test this successfully, Make, we'll hard code it. But this is way cheaper than me having to pay developers to test it. It's easier to test with no code and then hard code with developers, or there's a bunch of coding AI solutions. So this webhook is listening, and now we're going to have a conversation with our AI, and she's going to sell me a unit.
Hello, and thank you for calling your town self-storage. This is Anne. How can I help you today?
Hey, Ann, how you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. How about you? What's on your mind today?
I was looking to see if I could rent a storage unit.
Awesome. I can totally help with that. First, could you please verify the phone number you're calling from?
Sure, it's 315-888-2222.
Got it. 315-888-2222. Now, what's your first name? I want to make sure I spell it perfectly.
First name is Guy.
Thanks, Guy. G-U-Y, right? Did I get that right?
Yes.
Perfect. Now, what's your last name, Guy? I'll make sure to spell it right, too.
Last name is Javarone.
Thanks, Guy. Is that Javarone? Did I nail it?
Perfect.
Awesome. Guy Javarone? So what are you planning to store with us?
Looking to store a motorcycle.
Nice. The motorcycle sounds cool. Have you ever stored anything with us or anywhere else before?
No.
Got it. First time storing, no worries. I'll make it super easy for you. How long are you thinking of storing your motorcycle?
About 6 months.
All right, 6 months, perfect. For a motorcycle, I'd recommend a 5x10 unit. It's $60 per month. Does that sound good to you?
Anything better?
Well, for a motorcycle, the 5x10 is the best fit. It's just the right size and keeps things simple. Plus, $60 a month is a pretty sweet deal. What do you think?
Do you have any specials going on?
Ah, good question. Right now, we don't have any specials running, but $60 a month for a 5x10 is still a solid deal. Shall we lock it in?
How about any one-time promotions?
Oh, you're in luck. We've got a 50% off your first month promotion, so your first month would only be $30 for that 5x10 unit. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Awesome, Guy. I just need your email so I can send over a quote and have our manager contact you to finalize everything. What's your email?
Email is test@test.com.
Thanks, Guy. Is that TEST@TEST.com? Did I get that right?
Yes.
Perfect. So, to recap, your name is Guy Javaroni, phone number is 315-888-2222, email is test@test.com, and you're looking for a 5x10 unit to store a motorcycle for about 6 months. Let me send this info to the manager real quick. Hang tight. All set, Guy. The manager will reach out to you soon to finalize everything. Thanks for choosing your town self-storage, and have an awesome day.
You as well. Thanks. All right, so that is how that goes. And let me pull that back up so you can see. So you saw the webhook fire. So the voice AI fired the webhook after it collected all the information, just like we want to. And when you open up the output and look at the arguments, you can see the last name, Javarone, reason for storing. We're storing the motorcycle for 6 months. First name, Guy, phone number, 5x10, and test. And then you can take this information and using things like make.com or Zapier or N8N, any of the automation platforms, you can take that information and you can pass it to your CRM. If, like I said, if you have the right connections for the API for Storable or Cubby or Storganize or any of those, you can take it from your no code and you can pass it right into there so you can track your leads. If you're using Zapier, you can send a text to your manager, send a text to your owner, whatever you want to do. And this is a pretty decent way to not miss any calls. Or if you're feeling adventurous, you can set this up and you've got a low volume. You can set this up to take your calls for you. When you're trying to if you want AI to take your calls, it's pretty much just like having a call center. You need more than one number. And you need to have the AI set up to take concurrent calls. And that's a little bit of a bigger setup. So this particular setup is one owner in a rural area, doesn't get very many calls per day, doesn't miss very many calls per day, but this is just going to give them a break. And they're still going to be able to connect the information. And like I said, we got connections with StoreEdge, working on connections with Self-Storage Marketer, or self-storage management systems, and once we have that set up, we'll be able to pass it directly into the software, and not too far down the road, we'll do the rental for you. So hopefully that helps. Again, just to review, we're using Retail and make.com to pass the information from the call. We're using a prompt in Retail, a pretty basic prompt with a lot of detail in it. We're using a knowledge base with the pricing info and the size guide information to give the AI a way to sell the unit. And then we're passing that in to Make via a webhook. And then we can take from that webhook, we can take that information and pass it wherever we want to do, depending on the connections we have. I hope that was helpful for you all, just to give you an idea of what you can do with no code. I mean, we didn't do any coding. We edited some code, but this is what I like to do. I like to build it with a no code solution, test it, and then give it to my devs to hard code it so that we can actually make it scalable. All right. Hopefully this was helpful. If you have any questions or want any specific builds, just put them in the comments. I do read the comments, and we'll see you on the next one.